They're basically 25 things, and they're very simple about starting early and getting a good night's sleep the night before and all the basics. I don't know what you guys know about this. So yes, as I go on and you know this stuff, then maybe it's review and helps you to not be so stressed out about the event. But I thought I would start here and just let you know who I am. And I'm Connie Sexar. I'm at the UW Marathon County, and I teach for UW Marathon and UW Stevens Point, and I have been up here 15 years. I'm one of those people that did not start college until I was 40 years old. And actually wanted to go to college. So I graduated from high school in 1963. I'm 71 years old, and really wanted to go to college. And my high school teachers thought I should go to college. The one actually had me go over to Webster University, I'm from St. Louis, and try out for a scholarship in speech. And then he sent me down to St. Louis University to try out for a scholarship in speech because he was the director of plays that I was in and so forth. I didn't get those scholarships, but he said, Connie, you just have to go to college. And I said, okay. So I went home. My parents were working class people. My father was a candy salesman. He owned his own company. And in those days, he was a jobber. So he would go to the factories that had school supplies and candy and fireworks and all kinds of stuff. He would buy those items and then take it to the small stores in St. Louis, and they would be his customers, and he would go see them every week. Hard worker. He'd leave very early in the morning and many times not come back until 6 or 7 at night, and it was always hard work. So he had a 6th grade education, I think, and my mother had a 10th grade education. And she was an office worker and worked for one of these candy suppliers. And very loving, very good people. My dad was orphaned at a very young age. He actually chose to move away from his family because his mother died when he was 5 years old, and his father was very abusive to him and his younger brother. So the neighbors told about how abusive my grandfather was, and the authorities came and asked this little 9-year-old, would you like to stay here or would you like to come with us? And my dad said, I think I'll go with you. But if you know anything about adoption, you know that people don't adopt 9-year-olds, no matter how cute they are, and my dad was cute. So what he did is he would live in this orphanage for so many years, or for like so many months, and have to go to school and so forth. And then in the summers, they would put him out, lease him out to farmers in the area, and he would work in the fields from 9 years old. And Christmas came. We had lovely Christmases, but my dad said that what he got in the orphanage for Christmas was an orange and an apple. So he lived a pretty sad life, but he worked hard. He was a very loving person. So I had a very supportive family, but when I came to ask him, Dad, Mr. Smith thinks I should go to college. Do you think I could go to college? My dad said, absolutely. But my mother ran the finances of our family. And he said, I'll talk to your mom about it tonight. And I said, okay. And the answer was no. And the story was, if we couldn't do it for your 2 sisters, we can't do it for you. And I will tell you, if you have determination, you can do anything. I should have done it when I was 18 because the University of Missouri was just starting their St. Louis branch. What is your tuition now if you would want to go to one of these? Yeah. 23,000 tuition only, not room and board or anything. It's everything. Okay. I lived a mile and a half away from this new university, and the tuition was $200 a semester. So my mom said, if you really want to go, you pay for it yourself. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I was making $200 a month in an office job, so I decided not to go, and I regretted it every year afterwards. I don't think I realized it. I lived my life. I got married. I had kids and everything. But my husband and I were in marriage counseling when I was 39 years old, and this counselor was great. He had us put our whole lives on the table, and he said, you're now the age you are, and if you don't like the way your life is going, pick up all the things you like and then just walk out the door and leave everything else. So one night, it was my night, and I made the mistake of saying at 39, my parents never gave me a college education. So he let me talk for 45, 50 minutes, and then at the end he wraps up and lets you know what he thinks about what you said. And he said, Connie, if you were 18 years old, I'd let you get by with that. But at 39, if you want a college education, go get it. And I was insulted. I thought, what? So my husband and I used to go for walks. And we went for a walk the next evening, and he said, boy, he really put you in your place, didn't he? And of course, my husband had a college degree and had a very good job as an executive with, at the time, was it McDonnell? Yeah, it was McDonnell Aircraft. Eventually, it turned into McDonnell Douglas Aircraft. And so about 3 weeks later, he said, I thought you were going to college. And I said, well, I really want to. And he said, well, why don't you go check into it? And I said, because I'm scared. 39 years old, scared to walk into the office to register. And I said, would you go with me? And I think this is probably the beginning of what ended up to be a divorce. Because he said, no, if you want it bad enough, go find it out for yourself. I've already been to college. So I do believe he thought that was going to stop me. And instead, it inspired me. I started a 2-year college just to see if I could pass. I was raising 3 kids. I was working part-time. We were very socially active with his job, and both sets of parents were still alive and really needed my attention because he had a career. But I did it all, and I will tell you it took me 18 years to get my PhD. I started out part-time, went in the summer, but I know this is hard for you to understand this, but I enjoyed and loved every bit of that 18 years. So if you want something bad enough, you need to go for it. And the other thing that inspires me is now I get to inspire young people. Do it now. Don't waste your time. And also pick a career that you really, really love. And sometimes we get forced into it because my dad's in business, and my dad says business is the best degree. My dad's a lawyer. He said, I have to be a lawyer. No, you don't. You need to rebel and find your own passion. That being said, let's see. I think that gives you an idea of who I am and my background. And I would love to just go around the room, and if you could just give me your first name. And I'd like to know things like, are all of you seniors? No. Okay, want to know what year you are in school. Why did you take this course? What are you hoping to get out of it? What do you think will happen if you don't pass and get the score? So you want to start? And I'm sorry if I gave you a whole lot. Oh, thank you very much. Usually that's what I do because people go, what'd she say?
Okay.
Do you remember them?
I think so.
Okay, good.
I'm Ryan.
Okay.
I'm a junior. I'm in this class because I just wanted to, I understood some about American history, but I wanted to know more on what really happened. And if I don't pass the test, it's going to be
And are they taking any other AP classes?
okay.
If you don't pass, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to go out and do something crazy.
Don't think so.
Good. Believe me, I will tell you about my experiences as an AP grader, and it's insane what we find. Thank you very much, Ryan.
I'm Mitchell. I'm a senior this
Hi,
year.
Mitchell.
I'm taking this class because I really like history. So
Okay.
I like learning about history and that.
Just U.S., or do you like all kinds of history?
I like all history.
Okay.
U.S. history.
Do you guys know what you want to be when you get out of college? Okay, and that's perfectly all right. I changed my major 3 times. No, it's not. You want it up there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good. Well, and I started at 40 and changed my major 3 times. But as you can tell, I found something I absolutely love. So that's what's important.
If I don't get the best score, I still took the class and learned a lot from it, so it'll just help me with whatever
Okay,
classes I have to take
great.
in the future.
Have you found it to be a fun experience or not?
I've enjoyed the class.
Okay. Not everybody has? It's a lot of work. Yeah.
Ups and
Yeah.
downs.
That's with all of them. Okay. We'll move on. Thank you, Mitchell.
I'm Grace, and I'm a junior.
Okay.
And I took this class because I was ready for a challenge with history classes, and I just was bored in the other ones. If I don't get the best score, it
Okay, good.
Really fun. I still like become like more globally aware of like
Super.
US history stuff. So like that was like something I can take from it.
Uh-huh.
Future career or major is very undecided.
Okay, and that's perfectly all right.
I am taking AP literature as well.
Literature. You guys taking any other AP courses?
AP
Lit? Are you in the same course
Yeah.
with Grace? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, thank you.
Can I make a suggestion for number 3? Okay, juniors, if you don't get the score, you can take an AP in a subject, even if you haven't had that class. If you're that close, and it meant if I just get 1 point higher on this, I'm gonna get 6 credits, you could take it, say, Miss Krista, I wanna take that AP US History exam next year. Just because, you do not have to be in that class a second.
So just review on your own and,
If you're not, if
Mhm.
you're on your own, so have that awareness
Yeah.
as juniors, I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
you go, yes.
it's a good point. Hi.
Okay, I'm Brooke and I'm a junior. I took this class to get the knowledge like deeper. It's not like the basics of history.
Okay.
To go more in depth. And then if I don't get the score I want, it won't be the end of the world.
Good.
But, I mean, I still learn.
Uh-huh.
Future career major, something in like the business law, lawyer
Okay.
field. And then I think I'm gonna take AP Lit next year.
Okay.
I'm Preston. I'm a junior this year. I'm in this class mainly because I'm fascinated by history stuff. I also kind of wanted to do it for the college credit if I could possibly get it.
Absolutely.
So there's a chance. And then if I don't get the best score, I'd be disappointed. But there's always next year, and
Good.
I always have a good basis for at least starting in the college course. I know how difficulty of one and all that.
Yeah.
And then any other AP classes, I'm currently also taking AP Lit and AP Calculus.
Okay.
And then future career, I was thinking maybe towards engineering. but
Okay.
Mainly starting study.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, I'm Luke. I'm a junior.
Luke or Lou?
Luke.
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 Okay, got to get that K in there.
Yeah. I'm a junior, and I took this class because it's a good use of like free education.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I don't get the score I want, I'll just take American history in college.
Uh-huh.
And it's a lot easier
Absolutely. Hopefully. Okay.
then. Not worrying or anything.
Thank you.
And then I took AP biology and AP literature this year.
Okay.
And then future career major. I want to be a doctor, and I'm really excited to like do research.
Okay. You can be a historian and do research too, but I know it's different. Thank you.
I'm Nolan. I'm a junior. I'm in this class because I want to understand history, and also it's way cheaper than before you can go to college.
Mm-hmm.
What if I don't get the score I want? Well, my mom will yell at me. My dad will come with me. My mom will yell at me. My dad keep trying to cover me.
Hey,
So, but now that I can be taking this, that's cool.
okay. That if you didn't pass, it's okay. You do have to have the drive and the ambition, and I think you all have that, or you wouldn't be sitting in front of me right now. But I also want to give you some advice as a college professor. I've had students that did not pass the AP exam show up. I had one guy, I normally don't accept students after the first day. In my class, the very first day is the most important. I lay all the groundwork for them, and when somebody decides, I think I'm coming the second week in school, it's whether I accept him in class or not. And usually in just this semester I did it, and this guy is never there, and he's carrying a 38 in the class and begged to be in my class. You know, if you really want to commit. But I will tell you about these AP students. So I had a guy when I was first up there, and I've been doing AP, grading it and scoring it in an administrative role for them for the last 15 years. And each year I learned something new and so forth. And high school teachers also grade, and we work together. Some of my best friends are high school teachers all across the country, and we meet for 2 weeks in the summer, and just, it's a buttload full of work. We work 7 days a week from 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening, but then we go out partying every night. So, you know, it's a really nice way. I've met some really great people, but I also find some really dedicated people. And so the first guy that took my AP class, he came in, I think it was 3 or 4 days late, but he talked me into admitting him because he had had AP history, and I said, okay. He never took a note in my class. And I would say to him, you know, you're not taking notes. He said, oh, I got them all right here from last year. Worst thing you can do. Keep your notes, read them, compare to what your teacher teaches you. But we all teach differently. And you will find, and I hate to say this, that you might well show up on the day of the test and see things on that test that you've never had before. In my case, it's not that I teach to the test, but I make sure my students have had the material covered in some way in class. And, you know, if you don't have connections to the AP, even I don't know what the test is going to be like this year. I don't know until I show up the end of May and we all get together and start working on rubrics. So, you know, he wouldn't know what the test was going to be like. He needs to make you as prepared as you can possibly be, and you need to help with that. Then I had 2 guys who came in together, and that was about 3 years later, and they both had AP history, and they showed up at every class. They added to discussion, because if I said one thing, they'd raise their hand and say, well, I understand that those Matthew Brady photographs were staged. And I said, yes, they were. And then they would embellish on that even more and give the students more information. About 2 years later, I had 2 girls come. They sat right up front, and they'd sit and talk all during class, right up front. Drove me crazy. So one time, right before an exam, they came to me and they said, we just want to know if we're studying the right stuff. And they showed me their AP notes. And I said, I don't teach progressivism that way. You didn't take a note when I talk imperialism? So, you know, you've got to understand who you're working with. I love the fact that you all say you're not going to kill yourself if you don't pass. And I will tell you some of the things. So when we show up in May, there's a 2-week window for the leaders. We show up, they give us boxes of these exams. We get the question that we're going to score. We figure out the rubric. We figure out the list of possible dates that you all could use, possible things you could present, so that we're giving people the best opportunity we can. We have the experts who are on these fields, but we also have quite a few textbooks in front of us, and of course we have the computer, and we're going, sometimes we find, it all depends on what region you live in. So there'll be somebody who teaches out in California, and they talk a lot about some Mexican laws and stuff that affect immigrants that most of us don't even know about or teach. So we go over to the computer and we go, oh my God, we got to give this guy credit for this. This is really good. So you need to understand we are giving you the best we can. The company that gives the AP is called Educational Testing Services, and they use as their motto, embrace the standards, ETS. So what we try to do is give every student a fair chance, and we embrace the standards of what I'm going to be showing you this evening. And hopefully you've seen some of this stuff before. Has anybody told you, or have you seen, like online, the expectations of what are going to be expected of you when you take the test?
No. You mean like the schedule of the tests? Or
No, I mean like sample tests and the way we grade and things like that? Okay, because I'm going to go over that tonight. And it's really important that before you take the test, you know that. There are so many resources, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I'll look at this, but these are like books. I don't know how many of you have looked at these. The really good students, and they're not that expensive, in the beginning of the semester will buy one of these. It's not necessarily your textbook, but if you have not seen these, I'm going to pass these around and you can look at them. And there's a whole lot of them that you can choose from. Some are dated. We actually changed the test. This one's dated, but we changed the test and what we asked for and everything. And I think it was 2014 or 15. But if you have one of those, it really helps you to understand I'm sure you've all taken like pre-ACT and pre-SAT courses because they help you think about what's going to be on the test and to think in the jargon that they ask the questions. Love the fact of this periodization because periodization is really, really important in how we break up the questions and what we look for as a total answer. So you know my credentials, a variety of test takers, good news and bad news. The good news is it will be over before you know it, and you will have done the best you can do. The bad news is if you're not taking it seriously or you're not prepared, the results will come back. But I love the fact that you all say that it's not bad. They ask us as we grade these books, if we see a problem, to bring it to the attention to the head reader, the guy that oversees all of us. And there have been things in there. Students have written that they're going to go and blow up their school. Students have said, the exam is today, and I'm going out on the parking lot and kill myself because I put in all this. Yeah, and sometimes it's a joke, but we actually have to follow through with it. And there are people, for instance, some of the people that I get in class that took the AP exam are very bitter that they didn't pass. And it's like, you got to put it behind you. So I'm glad to see that hopefully you all are prepared to do that. Okay, so these are the kinds of questions you're going to have. Hopefully you've been preparing for these. The multiple choice, the free response, and the document-based. Have you had practice in those, or are you more?
Yeah. All
Okay.
of our tests that we take are multiple choice, and then we use the LEQs and SEQs. Well, LEQs and tests.
Okay,
We have a
perfect.
writing portion and multiple
Yeah,
choice.
perfect. Okay, good. Because some teachers don't prepare. Did you know that there are some states like South Carolina that make all of their students take the test whether they took the course or not? So there's time. So what you will get is a pink book. In college we use blue books, and that's what I brought along. But the day of the exam, you will have, and your exam booklet will be bigger than this. These are the small blue books. But we'll open them up, and sometimes they're completely blank. Sometimes they'll go, I don't want to take this test. Sometimes they write these crazy suicidal or terrorist kind of stuff, which is crazy. For the most part, students answer. The sad part is that a lot of students do not spend, you can tell, the whole time on the question. And the ones that are really, really good, I will tell you two things, and I hope you all have good handwriting. I will tell you what happens is some of the readers get frustrated when they are reading the long exam especially. And it's like, oh my God. And I'm a table leader as well as a question leader. So I back read most of my readers to make sure they're giving everybody a fair shot. And I have had readers that, I can't read this, I'm not going to read it. My keys are over there. I actually have a magnifying glass that I take with me to the reading, and I pull it out because I think everybody should have a fair reading. And if I say to my table people, I said, if you can't read it, give it to me. I will read it. So good handwriting really, really helps. You'll see that this evening as I ask you to look at some of these exams. But you know, what you want to do is give yourself the best shot you can. And if you're going to hurry through it, it's horrible to say this, but teachers usually have an impression, and they are wrong, because I've seen some that are just horribly handwritten, but are brilliant. But a lot of times people look at it and say, this must be a stupid person that wrote so badly, thinking that I'm going to give them the grade because I can't read it. Is this okay that I just hold this? Okay, perfect. Okay, so multiple choice questions. What you want to understand, and maybe you have learned this along the way, or maybe your teacher has pointed this out, you want to understand the stem of the question. I don't know the answer, eliminating distractors, and changes in consistency. So basically, if you read the question, and we'll look at some tonight, and you don't really understand what they're asking for, don't spend a whole lot of time on it. But do try to get to the root of the question itself. Some of them are more convoluted than others. They try to be as straightforward as possible because you only have a limited amount of time to take those. If you don't know the answer, move on. Take the next one, and then if you have time, sometimes with a fresh mind, you can go back and look at it and say, oh yeah, maybe you were just too nervous. Okay, eliminating the distractors, understanding that sometimes a question is proposed that I try not to do this, and I know ETS does too, but sometimes there's a distractor in there and it throws you off of what you're trying to think of. So try not to get thrown by that. And as I said, we'll do some of these this evening so you can kind of get an idea of what they look like. Well, here's one right now. Alexander Hamilton's economic program was designed primarily to, how would you answer that one? Why do you think his economic program was established? Everybody agree with that? Anybody think it's something different? I think if you know anything about Hamilton, you're going to get that one. But students that don't know it thoroughly might get confused, or they might guess, and, you know, to me, clearly C is the answer. So you want to make sure you read the whole STEM part of the question and then say to yourself which one really fits with this. Okay, we're going to look at some of these, so I might actually go through this more quickly. The development of the early 19th century concept of separate spheres for the sexes encouraged all of the following except. Do you know separate spheres? Have you been taught that?
Male, woman, they should say,
And where are the women?
in home,
In the home. Where are the men?
work.
Out in the world. It is A.
I see how idealization of lady could throw you off, though.
Well, no, she's supposed to be the lady of the house, the angel of the
But
house.
like the ideal lady, right? Oh,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's in quotes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see what else I've got on here, because we do have something we're going to work on, and I don't want to spend all of our time. Okay, good. So free response questions. I know this sounds stupid. I say this to my students every semester, answer the question I ask. Sometimes people just go off and answer what they think they know about the question. Find out what the question is and answer that, not everything you know about it. Follow instructions. Do not do more than what they're asking you to do. One, you won't have the time, and consequently, you'll run out of time. But it's not that we count off for that, but if you give more, you're taking time away from giving the excellent answer, and it distracts from your answer. Support, modify, or follow directions, do not do more, and then support, modify, or defend. So when you give, this is some of the hardest things for students to learn. When you give an answer, make sure that you support, modify, or defend what you're saying. So one of the ways you support it, how would you support if I said, let me think about a question. The Reconstruction era was a time of turmoil that upset the North and the South and led to its destruction within 10 years. What were some things that you would show to prove that answer?
The like military districts in the South.
Okay, military. And so, how would you give that back to me? Would you just say, yeah, there were military districts in the South?
You'd say like uneasiness in the north, like manifested itself in like martial law or no military districts.
Okay. So actually, uneasiness in the South caused the North to be concerned about that and then sent troops. If you just said military presence, you're not supporting it, modifying, or defending it. You're just throwing it out there, and we call that a laundry list. So you want to make sure that do you guys have flashcards that you study from? No. Flashcards are perfect. You can actually buy them online for the AP US History course, and you could get one student to buy a set of them and loan them out and critique each other. But what flashcards do is they give you that little identification. You can use that in multiple choice, you can use that in your short answer, and you can use it in your long answer. And it actually gives you enough information and helps you to recall what the information is. So what you want to do in those free responses and you're answering the question is give enough detail that people know what you're talking about. I tell my students, and I do this when I grade, is pretend like somebody's walked into this classroom that has never had this course. And what you're going to do is teach them the material, and you are going to convince them that you are right. So to say that progressivism was a time of reform and things were really bad and they wanted change, that's all true. Now convince me you know what you're talking about by talking about women not having the right to vote, about the trouble with the temperance movement wanting to prohibit alcohol. Tell me about child labor. Tell me about the horrible ghettos in New York. You want to give details that show you know what you're talking about. And believe me, that's what we look for when we're doing all of our scoring. Jargon and other things you should know. Value-added grading system, expanded core, beyond the documents, trick documents, and I don't remember the last one. I made this about 3 years ago. Point of view, thank you. I was just drawing a blank. So what you want to do is understand what adds to your grade, but what detracts from it. And you can throw out good jargon. You could throw out some really great stuff about progressivism that'll blow people's socks off that maybe we weren't even expecting to see. But you can also throw in stuff that doesn't matter, and then that throws off the reader. You want to expand on the core of the question by explaining it, teaching it to somebody else. On the documents, you want to go beyond the documents. So many times what we find when we grade the documents is that people just repeat the documents. Students are afraid because they have a limited number of time to do that. You have to get in so many documents, and it's like, I better get them all down or they'll take points off. Points are deducted, and I can show you how we grade those. It's so improved from what it used to be. But the idea is you have to go beyond that. You have to bring in outside information. You are graded on that. So if you've got documents about progressivism and none of the documents talk about the temperance movement, go beyond the documents and let us know that you're aware of the temperance movement that's going on at the same time. And one of the progressive amendments that gets passed is the 18th Amendment that prohibits alcohol. Okay? And point of view. Make sure you have a point of view. It's your argument. And that's what you're doing in your essay is defending that. So when you read the documents, and I don't know if you've been taught to do this, have you worked a lot with documents?
Not really.
Okay, that's the scary part, is you don't have enough time. I found out that you guys come every day, but it's only an hour class, right? So there's just really even less, yeah. So it's so much that has to be presented. I personally, as a college professor, I bitched to ETS about this for 15 years, that in college what we do is we present a semester and we give exams. And it covers from the beginning until 1865. Some of us go to 1877, most of us do. And then when we come in for the 20th century, we go from, I usually start with the end of the Civil War and bring it up as close as I can to today. And my students study that for 4 months and take a test. It drives me crazy that they expect you guys to have all this information in a year and take a test. They refuse to listen to those of us that complain about it, and it would be expensive. But by the same token, you need to make sure you're reviewing and staying on top of it, because that is what's being expected of you. So when you look at the documents, what you want to look at is you want to know who the author is, why is he or she writing this, and who's their expected audience. So that's how you're going to analyze the document. A lot of times people look at the details, but don't stop and look at what year was it put out, who was the author. If you know anything about the author, knowing that this was a minister or something helps you to really understand the document better. And bringing that into your writing shows your grader that you have looked at the wholeness of the question and not just the words themselves. On the DBQ, you must make an argument. So you have to take a stand on what they are asking of you. You have to use a designated number of documents, organize the documents, explain the point of view, and demonstrate change over time. And I don't know how many people have taught that. It's what we look for, and you can have a wonderful interpretation of the documents. You can even have an argument, but you will lose at least a point if you don't show how this is the way it was when it started, and when it was finished, this is the result.
How do you want us organizing documents?
Okay, there are some documents that actually fit together. So when you look at them, a lot of times students, when we do the pre-rubric, and we're reading boxes and boxes and boxes, we'll say, listen to this, I never would have done this. But the students will take, let's say, 2 Republican views on business. So you've got, let's say, 7. I think it's either 7 or 9. It used to be 9. I think they have 7 documents now. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's 2 of them. So maybe number 2 and number 7 deal with conservative business practices. Maybe number 1 and number 5 somehow deal with religious interpretations. And so instead of doing them in order, which a lot of students do, it's so much easier to write, it's so much easier to get your argument across and your point of view when you pair them. So you say document 2 or document 1 and document 7 take on the challenge of Republican conservatism. It's a good question. Okay, so suggestions, free resources. Use them. This is on the sheet that I can't find, 25 things, but there are resources out there. Use the resources. Do you know that there are past exams that are online? Have you looked at those? Okay, that's a good thing. I will tell you that we don't use the same exam questions, but you know, we've been around for a long time, and those of us who have will say, didn't we ask a question on imperialism like in 2012? No, that was 2008. Oh, really? But there's only so many topics you can choose from. So there's some that are just more popular or expected or define the age, the periods better than others. So if you can get a hold of last year's, which you can online, you can look at those questions and you can pretty well be sure that your document questions and your other free response question is not going to be on what was asked. But I'd still look at it so I understood how to answer that, but I'd go back further and say, well, what kind of topics do they ask? It's not always on the American Revolution or the Civil War or something that you're comfortable with. It might actually be on something about economic policies of the American Revolution or economic policies of the New Deal. So you want to make sure that you understand almost anything is possible. But I would look at those and I would see how people use those documents and things. Where are you studying? So who has really studied hard preparing? You don't know the date yet of your test?
May 17th.
May 17th. Perfect. You have a lot of time. So have you individually started to really review for this? Or are you just taking the course and don't be ashamed to say it? My own students think that you can cram. It's not going to work. And I'll tell you especially how it doesn't work is when it's the whole year. You'll go crazy. You'll get your information mixed up. I can't even think of what some of them are, but sometimes it's hysterical because they get something like imperialism mixed up with part of the Cold War policies or something. And they write their exam, they're wanting to write on imperialism, and instead they're writing on the 1950s instead of the late 1800s. And it's because they crammed and they figured, oh, I think I remember that. So what you want to do is you really want to study a little bit every night and prepare yourself. That's why these flashcards are so super. You can carry them with you wherever you go. You can mess with each other with them and kind of trick each other. You can, or try to trick each other. You can just put them in your brain. And I will tell you that I've also taught education courses. We learn better when we read in smaller time periods. So if you have a reading assignment, which for my students is usually, depending on how fast they read, usually about an hour to read a chapter. And I will have students that'll read it the night before. They read it, they don't learn it. So when they have a quiz, I think I remember that, but I teach them to try to read 20 minutes. Put the book down, go take a walk, go out and shoot some hoops, go to dinner, relax. Maybe an hour before you're going to bed, read another 20 minutes. And interestingly enough, that material stays with you better. Get up the next morning and read the next 20 minutes. Because you've got a free mind. When you are throwing it all in and it's covering, a vast amount of time, it's really difficult, even if you take notes, to remember it. Spend time organizing essays. Look over essays, understand what's expected out of you. The more you practice taking, the better off you will be. Penmanship, as I say, counts. We don't take off for it. The problem is you frustrate somebody if they can't read your essay. The mind of the reader. We actually have people give us notes sometimes that say, I'm really sorry you had to grade this. I hope this wasn't too difficult for you. And we laugh. And, I would say usually our 8s and 9s on essays don't put anything because they keep writing and writing and writing until the end. But you'll get people, it's prom tonight and I didn't study and I hope this doesn't take too much of your time and please don't feel badly about me. I just rather you, if anything, said thanks for reading this, which some people do, but you don't have to put anything. But understand my mind as I'm reading it. So I'm reading hundreds of these a day. I'm trying to embrace the standards, keep up with the rubric and everything, and understand that there's a real human sitting there reading your exam. And so try to organize your essay, write it to where we can read it, and show the best you can show. That's your opportunity. It's the only opportunity I'll ever get to know 90273 or whatever is through that one essay, and I want to give you the best shot I can. Preconceived notions. Do you have preconceived notions about what this test is going to be like?
Yeah, really hard.
Hard.
The time is going to be too short.
Yeah, time is going to crunch you and you're going to feel like
Okay.
you're running out of time.
And are you preparing for that?
Well, we do write essays and yeah.
Do you time the
Yeah,
essays?
Our essays and our multiple choice are always timed.
But I
Perfect.
feel,
Yeah, I feel like after writing your SAQs, your LAQ, and you get to your DBQ, and you're like, oh, I can't write anymore.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
also feel like,
And
What else?
like when you're writing it in class, you're almost more relaxed than you're going to be during the final because you know that during class, like, hey, this isn't that important, so
Okay.
you write easier and you don't feel the time as much.
Yeah.
But then once you get to the actual test.
So I have ways that you can get around that. On the sheet that I can't find, that I might have a PowerPoint on it, I don't know. But one of the things you want to do is make sure you get, number one, you prepare. Use these weeks to prepare and not blow it off and think, I know it, I'll just answer whatever I see. No, really study and prepare. But the other thing is the night before, when I started college, all my nieces and nephews who lived close to me were in college. And the night before my first psych exam, I was over at their house. Went over, had popcorn, drank beer, visited with their parents. And the one looked at me and she said, Aunt Connie, don't you have a psych exam tomorrow? And I said, yeah. And they all looked at each other like, what's she doing here? And they said, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, I know it, and I'm going to do just fine. And they said, what? I never crammed. I always prepared. I always studied. I never stressed out because I owned the material. I relaxed the night before. I didn't even look at my notes the night before or the morning of. I figured it was in there and it was good. People who stress out are the people that when I walk in before I give a test, they got the notebook open. And they're just looking and looking. And I'm going, okay, I'm passing the test around. You have to put the notebook away. What you want to do is control, this is ridiculous, control your own stress level. 1, by being prepared. 2, by eating properly, getting enough sleep, and understanding that if you don't know it by the morning of, y'all said you're not going to kill yourself. So life will go on, and it helps you to relax, to know that this is not going to be this earth-shaking thing if you don't pass. I want you to take it seriously. But I also know that stress, I think you're absolutely right, Thomas, when you say, I get in there and it's like, it's more stressful because I know it's the real thing and I'm watching the clock. Don't watch the clock. Somebody will tell you when your time's up. Just write, do the best you can, and hopefully it'll all work out.
Yeah. Multiple choice is kind of hard to like distribute your time on too, because they say a minute per question, but
then I overthink the
yeah,
question.
because then a lot of the answers are similar, so then you get caught up, and that's what you call the distractors.
Yeah.
So that's just something we have to
Well, you know, it's funny. I took education courses because I first set out to be a high school school teacher, lived in the city of St. Louis, and I was like, I think 48 at that stage, and could not get a job. I graduated with the highest honors of my school. I was president of the History Honor Society, but I was 48 years old, and the people on the hiring committee in the high schools were like 22 to 30 years old, and they looked at me like, what does she know? And she won't fit in with us. Yet I fit in with my own children, and most of my friends are the ages of what my kids are, because I don't look at myself as 71 years old. These were my schoolmates. Anyway, so I get out there, highest honors, had 25 interviews at 25 different suburban schools, never got a call back. Went into the city of St. Louis. They called me and asked me to come, and I interviewed at 2 schools and got job offers. I didn't take them because it was downtown ghetto St. Louis lockdown with a police officer on every floor. And I thought, you know what, I'm not putting my life on the line to do this. This is ridiculous. So I went on, got my master's and so forth, but I don't know why I brought that up. Something you said, or somebody did. Anyway, that's my story. That's a distractor for sure. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to find the one handout I wanted you to have, and if I can't, let me look and see, how do I see if it's on that disc? Go out of that.
Do you guys want to take a quick little restroom break, stretch your legs?
Perfect.
No, you
Yeah,
don't.
that's good.
Even if you're up moving while
For answers on something like this, and you want to make sure, and you should have a number 2 pencil, it's the only way that's accepted, and you want to make sure that you fill in that whole circle with the answer you've got. The other thing is, if you look through it and you think, oh, that I didn't mean A, I meant D, make sure you erase thoroughly, because sometimes we get the machine throws those out because it doesn't know if you wanted A or D because you didn't erase it clearly enough. Okay? So we'll practice some on the multiple choice, but I'm not going to give you these to do it. I just wanted you to be aware of that's what that will be. This that I passed out, hopefully you have seen this before, but when we show up, so what I do is we do the whole rubrics, we read all these hundreds of essays and decide what's a 9, what's a 1, and so forth. And then we train the readers as they come in the next week, and then we oversee the readers at the tables. So one of the things we do is give these out to the readers, but I think it's best if you have this yourself. And I'm not going to go over it in detail, but I will just show you, these are the rubrics that we grade by. These are the things you can look at your exam. For instance, what were we talking about when I asked for, the whole military presence in the South and Reconstruction? If you give that, if you don't mention it at all, it's probably, and you've got a thesis, it's probably a 1. If you mention that and you mention a few other things, you're probably going to get into the 3-4 area, but if you describe them in detail, that shows up on the rubric as giving you extra points. So I'm not going to go over this in detail, and you might actually want to give a copy of this. I'll leave one for your teacher, because I think it's best personally if you go over it yourself. But if you want to go over it as a class, that's perfectly all right as well. But this is what your reader has, and this is how your reader is trained. And the more you know that, the better off it is. When I do my college exams, I have a rubric. And when my students are studying, they get my questions ahead of time. They get like 5 questions per test. I pick the question that day that they're going to answer, but together in class, we work on what my rubric will be. So if I'm asking you, what is imperialism? How did the U.S. become involved in imperialism? Who were 4 important people that were against imperialism and why? All that goes on the rubric. You have to have those things. And you know that as you're studying. You're not going to have that advantage. So what you're going to have is, I have no idea what question is going to be asked of me. But know that every question that is asked of you, the more information that pertains to the question you can give, the better. Make sure, do you work on writing thesis?
No, not anymore.
Okay, but you have.
Yes.
That's the other thing. We find some teachers don't even, the deal is they'll have these great, this is a great size class. Do you have more in your class than are here this evening?
We have two different.
Okay. Yeah, and 20 is okay. The smaller the class, the better, because you can work in groups together. Do you work in groups or not? Okay, good. But you also get a chance to ask more questions, and you get more feedback from your teacher. But we have people that teach 40 to 45 students in a class, and they're teaching an AP class, and they just love their best students. They don't prepare the others. So you have people that don't know how to write, and they don't care, and they don't notice it, and they're like, well, you got to teach it to yourself. No. You want to know that these things are going to be expected of you, and if your teacher knows this ahead of time, the more that person can help you as well. Okay, so everybody's got one of those. We're going to work on, what is this? Oh, this is the short answer. Or maybe I'll do the multiple choice first. I didn't do a whole lot. I think I did 11 questions. For these short answers, okay? So we're going to go over it first, and then I'm going to ask you to see what score you would give it. A score of a 3, response accomplishes all 3 tasks set out by the question. Score 2, response accomplishes 2 of the tasks set out. Score 1, accomplishes 1, and score 3, none. Very rarely do we have a dash, but that means they left the book completely empty. What is so weird is for years when we would have, just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, we've given it a dash because they're not dealing with the question. We're told now, no, you have to give that a 0. And it's like, oh my God. I mean, they didn't attempt to do anything, but it is what it is. Okay, scoring. So what you want to do is, let's look at the document itself, or what they're going to be asking you questions on page 17. So turn it over to the next page and read that through first. This is your short answer question. So you've got it in front of you. You want to have a good attitude, know why you signed up for the class, and apply the best attitude you can in completing this task. I think what I see tonight is you all do have a good attitude, and you're taking it for different reasons. And to me, the most important reason for me is the interest that you have. Because if you don't like it, but you're taking it just to get the credit, it's not going to affect you. Recognize that there may be things on the test you do not know. They were not a part of what your teacher presented to you. That's why I use these, advise students to use these. They have these downstairs. Chris showed these to me today, so they're available. I think your teacher had one on the...
They have a bunch of there.
Okay, good. You want to look at those. Take them home for a weekend and just kind of play around with them. You don't need to read them cover to cover, but it really helps you to prepare you. What you want to do when you sit down to take that test is you want to own the material. And the way you do that is you keep looking at stuff about the topics and the different periods. Memorize U.S. history. I know people say that's not what we're asking you to do because we're asking you to write essays and we're asking you to think about DBQs and compare them. But if you do not know these facts of these periods, you can't draw on those. So for instance, in the DBQ, when it asks you to bring in, you have to bring in outside material of the time period. If you don't really know American history, those documents might be all you do know. That's all you knew when you came into the class, and we gave the best documents we could, and you're like, well, I don't know anything else. So presidential timelines are good. Were we in a war at the time? Was it leading us into a war? Those sorts of things, if you have all this U.S. history stuff in your memory, you're going to be able to draw on that. Check out prep books. Once again, Princeton Review, and I talk about those, and Chris said, I think she sent you an email or something about that, but those are on there. And once again, the Cliff Notes are good, as well as the flashcards. And at least have one or use one that your library has or that your classroom has, and actually use it. Don't just say, yeah, we got that, but I never got around to using it, because it could make the difference between really passing and getting the score or not. I don't know which ones. A lot of people favor different ones. I think my favorite is probably the Princeton Review and the Noble Review. I certainly love the flashcards. I'm a big proponent of that. When you have chapters that you're either reading in that book or that you're studying in class, write outlines of that and know the way U.S. history is broken into these time periods. Own that material. Understand why they're broken into periods, what that leads to, which helps you then to see change over time. Okay. Check out websites. Lots of them out there. APUSH Packet of Doom, AP Presidential Reviews, Tesler's AP Guide, GildaLehrman.org study guides. YouTube has great stuff. There's things on there about students who have taken the AP. It's like 5 minutes, and they can give you some of the ways to study for it, what to expect. College Board, which is what I've given you, but is also online. You can go to the College Board and put in there AP U.S. History 2014, and you can actually see the questions that were asked. So the more familiar you are with the format and what we're looking for, the better it is. Videos on how to succeed in taking the AP U.S. exam. Tommy Ritchie's got some videos there. AP study guides are also on video. Review constantly. I can't repeat that more than when I say own the material. Take notes. Take plenty of notes. Take notes when you read. Take notes in class. Don't just skim the material. Actually read it, learn it, own it, and constantly go over your material. You want to be the expert on this topic, and you want to own it. Here we go with the flashcards. Use flashcards to study. Write your own. Our Amazon has excellent flashcards for U.S. history. They help you to recall the information, and you'll use this information on all parts of the test. So interestingly enough, I tell my own students this. They get a vocabulary list, and they do pretty well on the multiple choice and short answer. And I get to the essay, and I'm asking them a question. They do the laundry list. They do the military presence after the Reconstruction, but they don't explain to me what it is, yet they memorize that material for those other 2 tests. So you want to make sure that that gives you so much information if you know that, and then use it. Don't memorize dates and times. The periods is what we're looking for. You know, if you put, and we don't take off for it, if you put World War I started in, or U.S. became involved in World War I in 1912, we're going to laugh and we're going to say the war didn't even start until 1914, but you're not going to get docked for it. You're going to know the period that it was in, and we move on. So no periods more than exact dates. What do I have? Important things in in history include vocabulary, names, and dates. So not specific dates, but periods. Know names, know who the presidents were, know what period they were in. Know the vocabulary, know what it means when somebody says imperialism or Reconstruction or whatever. The more you know, the better. The more facts you can show, the better. As you study, pretend you don't know anything about the subject. You should self-study. Teach the material to yourself. Use the prep books and study them for everything about the subject. Follow the prep books, especially the minuscule material, as everything's important. So those prep books that are sitting on that table, you might look at it and it's got some minuscule thing. Maybe you never dealt with women's reform in the mid-19th century. Somehow that never came up. If it's in that book, it looks like, well, we never had that, so that's not going to be important. As I said, he can't cover everything. That's important if it's in that book. So it seems minuscule to you, but it wouldn't be there if it wasn't important. Take the time to list major topics of U.S. history and bullet point them. Summarize everything you know about the topic. So as you're studying and you've gotten to a point where you're like, well, do I really know this? Write down World War I and write just bullet points of everything you know about World War I. Then look back on your notes and say, yeah, I knew 17 things. That's pretty good. If you only knew 3, you're like, well, maybe I better spend some more time on that topic. Do practice tests. Do online practice tests. Do more practice tests. Do lots of practice tests. 2, 3, 4, 5 times, whatever. Get to where you are comfortable with the wording of the questions and prove to yourself you can do this. Online has practice tests from 2016 back to 1990s. Go over your mistakes, figure out where you need to concentrate, and learn things you are weak on. Read the responses and understand how the exam is scored and what you're doing. Actually, I highly, highly recommend, especially this group, for you guys to study in groups. Sit down and work it out, similar to what we did tonight. Maybe have somebody one night be the one that makes up the questions. And then you get to score those and you get to advise them on why you chose that. But sometimes it's easier to study by yourself, but many times you learn from each other. So I highly recommend that. Use those practice tests that are on the web. Go over your mistakes, the same as we did tonight when it was explained that you didn't know why it was a 3 or why that answer that you had questioned was, and somebody pointed out, well, it's because the Great Awakening had religious aspects to it. Okay, the rest of these. Start preparing for the exam as early as you can. Dedicated students start preparing on day 1 and stay with the updating all information. Well, it's a little bit late to do that now if you haven't done it, but you still have plenty of time to really prepare yourself to study. Do not cram. Schedule your studying. If time allows, set up a chapter a night to cover thoroughly. Review your notes every evening. Make up a schedule to prepare. Get a calendar and each day do 1 topic a day. Spread at least 30 minutes on it. Preparing for the exam. Go over the material. You think you already know how to solidify the information. Maybe you do, but you want to make sure you own it. You'd be SOL if the question came up about the Cold War and you found it boring and didn't really study it. So you want to make sure that, especially if it's one that doesn't interest you, make sure you know that. Let go of stress. As I said before, the night before the exam, get a good night's sleep, eat a healthy breakfast, breathe deeply, relax, release your stress, understand you have prepared for this and you should be fine. Do not freak out when taking the exam. You are prepared for this, and by this time you either know it or you don't. Don't spend an inordinate amount of time on any one question. Answer what you do know and answer it to the best of your ability. If you do not do well, take this as a college course because you have the background and probably will succeed. I love what Chris said. If you're a junior and you didn't do well, take it again. Prepare yourself. Keep your AP notes, but realize your college professor will, in most cases, teach the class differently than your AP teacher did, and prepare for college tests the way that the professor is expecting your answers. Do not see this as a waste of time. If you did not get the score you wanted, you did your best, you learned from the experience, and in the meantime, you learned a lot about U.S. history. Okay? So I think actually we're going to end with that. What I would like for you to do is figure out tonight, by tomorrow morning when I show up again, what are some things you wished that I had explored in more detail? What questions do you have? What do you still feel unsure of? Do you know any of that now? Or you want to think about it? You do have some questions now or no? No.
There were some things that that you said, and it was totally the opposite of what we learned. And we're just
Okay.
we were told to
Like the
separate
whole
them.
not separating, because he
Thesis?
told us
Yeah.
that we
Put it
should
at the end if you
separate it.
No, no.
We're told
See, that's
to-
why I love it when AP teachers
Are also graders.
are graders. We call them readers because we don't really grade, we
The
read
teacher-
and score.
Yeah, the teacher
But-
that we had that taught us most of our material.
Uh-huh.
He was like a first-time AP teacher, so he was coming right from
Yeah.
the class that he was taking.
Yeah.
So I guess the class is teaching wrong
He
too.
said that you could. He said you could write in either, but he also said that it's. Just
Well, you can.
easier.
I mean, we will read it and you see that that person got a 2.
Wait, so you will drop points if you read it like this?
We don't drop points. You could still have all the details.
It flows better if you do it.
It flows better, it looks better, it immediately says to the grader, the reader, whatever we are, that this person is taking this seriously as an essay. And he told you could put the thesis at the end?
And
He
or
said
the-
both.
He said
He
both.
said do it both.
Both is great because what both does is it almost hits another punch. But you got to look for it in the beginning, and if we don't see it, we don't give credit for it.
Your thesis isn't super strong in the beginning, but it's strong in the end. He said still write the thesis, but if you're able to develop
Yeah.
it throughout while writing,
Yeah.
and then you restate it.
No.
It's better. So
No.
even look at the thesis and
Nope, I'll tell you, I mean, that's what I grade the most of, and that's the first thing we look for. Yes?
Okay, this is like what our first English teacher gave us.
Uh-huh.
Beer.
Well, it's like what you handed to us, and it's like it says like in this one that like the thesis should be located like more than one.
What we like is a strong introduction with a thesis. That we like the body of it to have solid evidence, which means examples and things that pertain to the question. And then the conclusion, the best conclusions are the ones that wrap it up and mention the thesis. That's your 8 or 9s. But if you don't have it in the beginning, or we're trying to find it in the beginning, and we're searching for it, and then it's at the end, it's like, what surprise is this?
See, because it says the thesis must consist of one or more sentences located in one place, either an introduction or conclusion. It says it's here. So it says
Yeah, nope. Well, I tell you, I mean, I sit there and I'm a leader, and that's the way we train our people.
I think I go off of what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
You could grade my test. I hope you grade my test because if my looks good.
Just write your name on it. And then
Yeah, I have bad handwriting, so I want.
Well, you know what some of them do when they know that their teachers are readers, they'll put something like, "Hi, Mr. Stewart." And of course, a lot of us who've been coming for a long time know each other. And it'll be, John, I got yours over here. You know, and it's like, it's crazy. But
Little stew.
it kind of breaks things up a little. But in reality, if your teacher is grading, he can't grade his school.
He's not allowed.
So. So I think we are finished for this evening. I appreciate your attention, and I hope this has helped somewhat. And like I say, I will be back tomorrow, and especially with you guys. I'm sure other students will have questions, but it's you guys that I'm concerned about because you've gotten this prep. And if you're still or uncertain, I would rather you bring that to my attention as quickly as possible. Okay?
That's neato.
Okay. Yes.